In this module, we'll be seeing another way of creating beats using samples, but this time working inside a free sampling application called Loopcloud, which makes it really easy to create patterns by having built-in pattern presets, which you can use to sequence each of the different drums, which are taken from an enormous library of samples, the biggest in the world, in fact. It works alongside any music software, so is the perfect complement to any producer's setup, and has seriously transformed a lot of people's workflows since it came out, including mine. So it comes highly recommended. Let's check it out. So once again, I've got a blank or empty Ableton project here with just a few audio tracks with nothing on yet. And again, we're going to create our beats by dragging samples onto these tracks, just like we did in the last module. Only this time, instead of using the browser in Live and finding samples there, we're going to use Loopcloud. So let's switch over to that. So this is the Loopcloud standalone app. And straight away then, let's just get to the search box at the top here so we can start looking at how you find sounds. And up the top here, you find sounds by entering tags into this area here, which you can do by going into the menus here and just clicking on them, or a bit quicker just by typing in what you're after. So I'm starting to type in kick here, and then I'm clicking on the kick tag that comes up below. And we then need to choose whether we're looking for loops or for one-shots. So I'm going to click on one-shots here. So once again, a one-shot sample is just like the sounds we've been looking at so far on the course. It's like a single hit, a single sound that you can then duplicate or work with to create whatever patterns you like. And this is as opposed to a loop, which is a pattern that lasts for a certain number of bars, which can contain one or more sounds that have been sequenced into that pattern. So you could have kick loops, for instance. If I search for loops instead of one-shots, you can see these are kicks that have been sequenced into different patterns, like kind of house 4/4s or more syncopated rhythms here, or much faster ones. But we're going to look for one-shots once again. And you can also narrow down the search to different genres in the genres menu, or again, just by typing here. I'm going to go for hip hop. And I'm actually also going to narrow it down to the Loopmasters label, but you don't have to do that. You can keep it open to all labels on Loopmasters. And then I just click on any one of these and then hit the space bar to check it out. So it's looping right now at the bottom. And I can just select different ones here, either by clicking on them with the mouse or using the up and down arrow keys on my keyboard. It's a nice one. So now I've found the one that I'm interested in. There are a few ways of getting it out of the software. One is just to literally click on here and just drag it out. And then we can go back over to Live and we can just drop it onto a track. So now we've got our kick loaded in here. We can then just work with it in all the same ways that we've seen so far. So we could alt drag it to different beats here just to copy different versions. And then once we've got our bar long pattern, just drag over that and then Command D to duplicate it out. So that's one way of doing it. I'm just undoing this though, Command Z or Control Z on a PC. Get rid of all of them. Because what we're going to do instead, going back to Loopcloud, is we're going to get Loopcloud to sequence these one-shots into patterns for us, which is a fantastic thing about Loopcloud. So I'm going to go to the edge here. You can see that the mouse cursor changes. I'm just going to drag it up so we kind of maximize this area. And what we're going to do now is go to this pattern section here. And we're going to go to the factory presets. And we're going to choose kicks. And then we're going to go to one of these genres here, which then appears. We're going to go to hip hop. We're going to go to hip hop kick 1. And you can see now it's got the kick drum that I've selected above here sequenced into a pattern for us. So it's exactly the kind of thing that we've been doing already in Ableton, but it's sequenced it for us. So it's taken that one shot and it's duplicated it in certain places to create what is actually a 2-bar pattern here. You can see looking at the bar ruler, we've got bar 1 going from here to here with beats 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then the second bar starting here on 2, 1 and going beats 2, 3, and 4. So we can now check this out by hitting the space bar. And we can try it out with a different sample. Also nice. Let's go back to this one though. So that's sounding good. What we can do at this point, if we want to, is we could drag this out as a loop, which we can do using the export button here. So to do that, we just click on it, so it downloads, and then it says copied to clipboard. So then we can just click on it again, drag it out, switch over to live, and then drop it into our project as a loop. Now, the only thing we might want to be aware of when doing this is how fast our loop is running at, but we'll come on to that in a moment. So let's just delete this for now because I just wanted to show you how you then just drag it out as a loop. But what we're actually going to do is we're going to stick in Loopcloud for even longer and create all of our beats in there and then drag them all out as loops later on. So to do this, we're going to make use of the multi-track feature in Loopcloud, which is down here at the bottom. And much like in Ableton, down here we've just got separate tracks. Just like in Ableton, you've got separate tracks. So if we click on track 2 here, we can get a snare into this track. And the way we can do that is by coming up to the top here, starting a new search. Now we're going to look for snare one-shots. So click on the snare tag, click on one-shots. And again, I'm going to search for hip hop and loop masters. Now we could have stayed on the kick search here by clicking on that tag, on that tab here, and just getting rid of kick and changing it to a snare search. So that would have been a bit quicker, but we would have lost this kick search. And I'd kind of like to keep that there in case I want to change my kick later on. So we're going to keep that there. Instead, I'll stay on the snare here. So we got separate searches, one for kick one-shots and one for snare one-shots. And now we can click on any one of these to load it into track 2. What I'm going to do first though, so we don't hear the kick, is I'm going to mute it. So I go down here and click on mute. So this is exactly like when I turned off the numbered switches on the tracks in Ableton Live, so we couldn't hear them. So that just turns off this track temporarily, just silences it. So now we can just listen to track 2 on its own by clicking on one of these, hitting the space bar or clicking on the play here. Sounding good. And once again, then I'm just going to go to pattern. I'm going to click on the menu. I'm going to go to snares and claps, hip hop, and then just choose the first one, hip hop snare 1. And again, you can see it's taken that one shot and it's duplicated it in certain places along another 2-bar pattern here. And just like we were looking at in the last module, it's put them on beats 2, nearly beat 4, it's just coming slightly earlier here, and 2 and 4 in the second bar. Just with a few kind of crazier fills here that are getting louder as they go. So checking it out on its own now, we just hit the space bar. But it's not going to sound quite the same until we add the kick drum. So let's unmute that now by clicking on the M. So now we can listen to the kick in track 1 alongside the snare in track 2. So let's check it out. Let's try a different snare. Sounding good. If I want to change the kick, I just click on the kick track and then go back to the kick search and then just try out a different one by clicking on it. And I can try a different pattern here by using the arrows. I'll just keep to the first one. So yeah, now we've got our kick and we've got our snare in place. All we need to do now is add a hat. So I'm going to do that by moving to track 3, click on plus, and actually I'll show you a quicker way here. Again, just saving you time. I'll click on the cross to get rid of that. I'll come up here, click on the magnifying glass there, and go to Save Current Search. And then when I click on plus, I can click on it again, and you can see that search down at the bottom here. So I can just click on it and then just get rid of snare and enter closed hi-hat instead. It's just a slightly quicker way there of getting the same search up, but with a different instrument. And then I can just click on any of them. And this time I won't even listen to it. I'll just go straight to pattern. I'll go to hats and shakers, hip hop, and then just choose the first one here. So now let's check it out with our kick and snare. Sounding good. If we want to listen to it on its own, rather than just muting these, which we could do, we can also just click solo here. So solo will temporarily mute all other tracks that you've got here and only play the one that you have selected. Sounding really nice. Let's take it one stage further now and add a loop over the top, because last time we went the route of adding crashes and sequencing kind of percussion ourselves. This time, let's see what loops are available for kind of adding extra layers and extra textures and extra groove and syncopation to our beats. So we're going to go to track 4. We're going to start a new search. This time, hip hop loops. And you'll probably get them coming out at quite a few different tempos, not just sticking around 100 BPM or the tempo that you're working at. At the moment, by the way, we're working at 120. So actually what we want to do is slow this down to maybe 100 BPM. Let's check it out, 100 BPM. Sounding quite slow now because we've been running at 120. But now if we wanted to find percussion loops that were close to this tempo, we just go over to this sidebar here, click at the top, and then click on the match tempo button here. So this allows you to do all sorts of things, search for loops that are a particular speed, have an amount of swing, have an amount of rhythmic density, so you can get really detailed with your searches. All we want to do though now is click match tempo, which sets a BPM range which is either side of our 100, so 94 to 106. And now we can click on some of these and see what we've got. Actually, what I want is percussion. I forgot to type that in. So now we've got percussion loops, hip-hop percussion loops at this range. Let's check them out. All sorts coming up, like, you know, full-on percussion loops with loads of stuff, live recorded ones that are just a shaker, a clap. So you've got all sorts of stuff there when you look at percussion. If you go into the instruments menu, you can see under the percussion category, you've got all of these different types of samples. So rather than searching for a particular one, like a cowbell or a conga or something like that, keeping it open with just percussion will come up with all sorts of different stuff. So you can just keep, you know, scrolling through. There are over 1,000 different loops here to check out all the different kind of flavors that you can find. So yeah, loads of fun there. So I'm liking the sound of this shaker here with my other drums. And I found another one in here as well, which has got a kind of bassier tom, which is almost like a bass sample, mixed with a few other bits of percussion. So I'm going to add that in as well. I'm going to go to track 5 to do this. Let's click on that loop. So now we've got this loop in track 5. We've got our shaker track 4. We've got our hat, snare, and kick. So let's just check them all out together now. Sounding pretty decent. Of course, if you want to change any of the levels here, you can actually move them up and down using these little faders here. So for example, we could take this new percussion down if we wanted it to be a bit subtler. I quite like it as a main part of the groove though, so I'm going to keep it quite high in the mix. And now let's just get this out and into Ableton Live. Now it's at a point where I'm happy with how it's all sounding. I don't need to go in and change any of these samples up. I'm going to keep with what we've got here. So there's a few options. If I click on the export, actually the default mode, let me just quickly switch back to that. The default mode for this button is current mix. So as you come into the software, normally this is how the button will look. It will say export and current mix. So all you'd need to do is literally just click on that button. If you don't own any of the samples, you'll then need to buy them. But if they're just samples in your library, or if you've just searched for free samples using the free tag, then you won't need to buy anything. In this case, though, I'm going to buy it all and then spend 4 points on the couple of samples that I don't have. And then when I click export, it just downloads it all. And then when I drag it out and switch over to live, we can drop that groove onto a new track here. And you can see it's actually changed the tempo of live automatically to 100 BPM because that's the tempo of this loop, because that's the tempo we were working at inside Loopcloud. So here we've got our drums. Nice. But what we might like to do instead, I'm just going to keep this selected here and then hit delete, get rid of it. Switching back to Loopcloud, what I want to do instead is drag all of this audio out as separate files. For example, I want a kick loop on one track, I want a snare loop on another track, the hats on another track, and so on, just like we've been working in live so far. So to do this, I'm going to click on the settings switch here, and I'm going to change it to processed separate files. That means whatever is going on in the sequencer here on each of the individual tracks will be whatever you drag out into the DAW. So now I can just click on it again, click and drag, and this time you can see it says 5 because we're dragging out 5 separate loops for each of our tracks. So let's go to live. Let's move along here, and you can see now I've got this chain of 5 samples. You can see the different names there. If I want to drag these onto separate tracks instead of the same track, I have to hold down the command key. If I don't do this, I can just move them afterwards, but holding down command means they appear nicely on my separate tracks there, and then I can just let go. And there we have it, there's our loops. Now you can see some of them are different lengths. This loop is 4 bars long. Most of the others are 2 bars long, and then this one is 1. So if I click on this one and hit duplicate to take it up to 2 bars long, then I can just drag over all of these and then hit duplicate to take them all up to 4 bars. So now we've got our 4-bar loop in live. Let's just check it out by turning on loop. So just as it looked in Loopcloud, then we've got our kick on track 1, solo it here, snare, hat, shaker, and then other percussion. So you can see how quick Loopcloud makes it not only to find sounds, but also sequence them into patterns for making instant loops that can then form the building blocks of your tracks. Like I said at the start, this is free software, so something you could use purely to manage your own sample library if you wanted to. But I personally recommend you grab yourself one of the subscriptions, as it's a very affordable way of getting your own sample library going. You don't need to buy whole sample packs anymore unless you really want to. You can just build up your beats or musical ideas with samples in the cloud within Loopcloud, and then just use a few points on those individual samples once you're happy with them. So go to loopcloud.com for more information about that, and also check out my complete guide to Loopcloud course for more tutorials on using the software. See you in the next lesson.